All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the 500-year-old previously banned secrets of power and wealth from Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince, and we're translating them into actionable, modern strategies. You know those people who seem perfectly ordinary on the surface but clearly possess incredible, quiet wealth? Well, today, we're going to uncover exactly how they pull it off.
Here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the reality of true wealth. Second, why you need to be a fox, not a lion. Third, the power of playing weak. Fourth, why you should beware your inner circle. Fifth, how invisible power controls everything. And finally, cultivating a harmless image.
Okay, part one, the reality of true wealth, redefining success. It's wild how we often get this completely backward in our everyday lives.
Think about the massive modern illusion surrounding wealth right now. On one side, you've got the social media flexer. You know the type, buying a Kawasaki bike or a BMW on EMI, and then just constantly stressing over their next paycheck just to keep up appearances. But on the flip side, you have the quiet neighbor. They might ride a totally standard scooter, wear plain clothes, but they are funding their kids for an education completely debt-free. The truly wealthy operate entirely under the radar. They absolutely value silence over applause. Now, this isn't exactly a new phenomenon. Over 500 years ago, Machiavelli actually embedded himself with Italy's absolute elite. He spent his time carefully documenting their most heavily guarded strategies for building and keeping power. And here's the crazy part. These strategies were considered so dangerous and so revealing about human nature that the resulting book was literally banned. The wealthy simply did not want the public knowing these rules.
Moving on to part two. Be a fox, not a lion. The danger of visibility. The absolute crucial takeaway here is understanding the catastrophic danger of making yourself a public target.
Historically, kings acted like lions, right? They announced their power, showed off their status, and as a direct result, they became highly visible targets taking on immense risk. But then you have a fox, someone like Giovanni de' Medici. He founded the Medici Bank, became the wealthiest man in Italy, but he walked the streets looking like a totally normal middle-class citizen. He literally held the debt for the royalty of Europe, but because he was entirely ignored by the general public, no one ever even tried to attack him.
So bringing this to the present day, social media flexing is just a massive strategic failure. Every single time you post a new achievement on Instagram or WhatsApp, you really aren't inspiring people. You're basically just handing out open invitations for jealousy. You're giving your competitors a big, bright target. Real wealth builders, think Warren Buffett or Ratan Tata, they value privacy because they know showing off just creates 10 new enemies. You really have to decide, do you want the attention or do you want the privacy? All right, part three, the power of playing weak, the art of disguise. Let's see how this builds into a really active strategy of masking your success.
Let me tell you the story of Francesco, a textile merchant from Machiavelli's era. In his first year, the guy made massive profits. But instead of buying a flashy new office, he stayed in his tiny shop wearing old clothes. By year two, whenever anyone asked, he'd actively complain about how tough the market was. And what happened? By year three, his suppliers actually felt so sorry for him that they gave him massive discounts. His competitors totally ignored him. And by year five, he was secretly the biggest merchant in the city, and literally no one saw it coming. By constantly underplaying his hand, Francesco manipulated human psychology perfectly.
And hey, it wasn't just Machiavelli saying this. Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, argued the exact same thing. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. This iconic strategy proves that the best negotiation tactic, even today, is to downplay your financial position. When you're buying a service, tell them your budget is super tight. People naturally want to tear down those who look strong, but they're surprisingly eager to help out those who appear weak.
Part 4. Beware your inner circle, the friendly threat. This one forces us to confront a really uncomfortable truth. Your biggest enemies aren't necessarily strangers.
Let's look at a pretty devastating modern example. A startup founder starts making crores in revenue and throws a party for their trusted inner circle, right? They start bragging about all their future expansion plans. The result? The CTO gets greedy, leaves for a rival company, and takes those secrets right out the door. Then, the marketing head steals the entire business model to launch their own firm. Within a year and a half, the original startup is completely shut down. It is terrifyingly common. Revealing sensitive information to your closest friends strips you of your power because it basically arms them to use your own strategies against you.
And look, this applies just as much to your family.
If they know exactly how much you make, they'll immediately spend it in their minds. They're going to pressure you to buy short-term liabilities, like a fancy house or a car on EMI. This completely derails your quiet, long-term wealth building. Things like opening a demat account, investing in mutual funds, building emergency stocks. If you want to maintain total control over your own life decisions, you have got to keep your exact income a closely guarded secret.
Okay, part 5. Invisible power controls everything. Fame versus influence. We really need to shatter this modern illusion that fame equals power.
We look at celebrities and influencers and we think, wow, they hold all the power. But the blunt truth? Fame is just a product. While the public is completely obsessed with highly visible celebrities, basically using them to sell stuff, the real string pullers are completely offline. They don't have an Instagram, a Facebook, or a Twitter account. Yet, they're the ones actually dictating global operations and setting the prices for everything we buy.
So who are these people? They are the pillars of invisible power. Angel investors, corporate accountants, high-level lawyers, institutional bankers, and government diplomats. Machiavelli observed that while kings were constantly getting replaced or even assassinated, the bankers and diplomats working quietly behind the scenes, they remained completely untouchable. To truly secure your wealth, you must cultivate deep, private relationships with these invisible power brokers. Build those private income streams and stay entirely out of the spotlight.
Which brings us to our final section. Part 6. Cultivate a harmless image. Let's apply all of this to something you probably face every single day: office survival. Machiavelli noticed that insecure kings would literally execute or exile the smartest, most capable men in their kingdoms simply because those men were a threat to the throne. Today, we call this the office politics trap. If you walk into work showing off your brilliance, taking all the credit, and acting like you're way smarter than your manager, you instantly become a direct threat to your seniors. And threatened managers will do whatever it takes to conspire against you, block your promotions, or just pile impossible work onto your desk to orchestrate your failure.
So what's the workaround? It's what we call the lucky strategy. If you really want to survive and grow quietly, attribute your wins to pure luck. If someone asks how you pulled off a brilliant project, just shrug and say, honestly, things just fell into place. Maintain a completely ordinary image. Never let them see how smart and strategic you truly are. By projecting a totally harmless average image, you prevent anyone from ever seeing you as a target. You dictate the exact reality you want the world to see.
As we wrap up this explainer, you really need to answer one final question for yourself. Do you want to act rich, or do you want to actually be rich? Because as Machiavelli proved 500 years ago, and as we see perfectly mirrored today, you just cannot have both. Are you willing to give up the cheap applause of looking successful on social media in order to achieve the quiet, unshakable reality of true hidden wealth? Just think carefully about what you post next.